you check the children? Use your little massive
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil, Laird, here to do a quick review for you guys of a movie that's now available on VOD and I imagine on Blu-ray and DVD very soon. Of course, you can't go out and get those unless you're doing curbside pickup, but I am here to talk about Guns Akimbo. And I'm here to talk about it by myself because Fuego, if you didn't know, he has a channel of his own that is more non-horror content, and I guess he thought this was non-horror enough to do over there, which makes sense. It's not terribly horrific, but there are definitely some horror elements in the movie, but not enough, so I understand. But I think there were enough for me to talk about it, so here we go. Guns Akimbo is starring Daniel Radcliffe, aka, of course, Harry Potter, or the dead guy from that Dead Guy That Farts movie that I never saw, but apparently I need to. But he is in this movie, and Samara Weaving, a nigh unrecognizable Samara Weaving from both The Babysitter and Mayhem. She is the co-lead in this, and basically Daniel Radcliffe plays a troll, an internet troll, a prideful internet troll that, well, I guess he's a self-declared troll, you know, so he tries to troll the trolls, and he just ends up coming off like the biggest of the trolls. And in this world, there is something called the Schism, which is a live-streamed murder party, essentially. There's contestants that are involved in the Schism contest, and basically two people are pitted against each other until one of them dies, and then the person that survived continues to go on. It's like a mixture of a lot of different things, this movie. It's a little bit Running Man, it's a little bit a couple of other things, which most people would say that this movie, the style of it is definitely not your average style. At first I was thinking, wow, this is kind of like an Edgar Wright kind of movie, but then as I watched more and more, I was like, oh really, this is just made like Crank was made. It's not quite as nuanced or as used for comedic purposes, the filmmaking, as the Edgar Wright movies are, namely Scott Pilgrim. But this one is definitely more in the vein of Crank, where it's just a lot of quick camera movements, weird camera movements, a lot of hyper violence and things like that. I mean, the Schism, again, is two people trying to kill each other while it's being broadcast to millions of people around the world. Well, hundreds of thousands of people around the world to start, and eventually millions around the world. But basically, because Daniel Radcliffe is the troll of all trolls, he starts trolling people watching the Schism, and unfortunately he catches the attention of someone and starts to troll him by, you know, cursing at him and saying stupid stuff, and the other person basically is like, you're not that smart, and fires over his IP address. And so Daniel Radcliffe freaks out and shuts the laptop, and unfortunately very soon he's visited by the people from Schism that drag him into the contest, and whether he likes it or not, because they want to teach his hands a lesson, his little troll fighting hands a lesson. And so they actually bolt his hands to two pistols that each have 50 rounds in them somehow. but that's what he has to work with, and all he can, and he has such trouble that he only wears his robe and t-shirt and boxers and like little bear footies and stuff like that. So it's really a funny sort of juxtaposition of your average action movie and how smooth the main guy is. This is just a guy that should not be involved, getting involved, and just having to survive. That being said, as shallow as the whole idea is, it is kind of a fun ride. I mean, if you just go into it not expecting a ton of depth, there's actually a little bit more depth to it than I thought there was going to be, especially with one character, Samara Weaving. They set her up to be just kind of a nameless, or not nameless, but just a random person that's killing people in the contest. But when we actually get to a bit of her story, it's kind of interesting. So there are aspects of the story that I liked, and it is a interesting enough conclusion. A little bit sequel baity, but still satisfying in and of itself. So overall, I'd say that I did enjoy Guns Akimbo. It's not one I'm going to revisit a ton, but it was fun, and it is something that I'd say everyone should watch at least one time. So that's the overall thoughts. The acting, since I already talked about the story, the acting is good. Daniel Radcliffe is good. The Samara Weaving, of course, is good. And I say unrecognizable because they've added a grill to her, so a couple of her teeth, her fangs are like bright metal. And then she has bleached hair, like white hair almost, or just blonde. I don't know. It's hard to place now, but she's got these frost white eyes. She looks a little bit like Killer Frost from the Flash show. It's kind of silly, but nonetheless, they just make her. They don't make her as attractive as like the babysitter and Mayhem tried to make her. So that was interesting, and she's still fun to watch, but it's really over the top at times. The dialogue is silly at times, but you know, the actors are doing what they can with what they've got, so they're doing a good job with the silliness. The bad guy, though, he's a bit over the top for my tastes. I mean, again, the movie is meant to be over the top, so most people might say that he fits in, but still, it was a little bit, you know, a little bit mustache twirly and over the top, and he's trying to have different range in his delivery, and it comes off more as inconsistent than anything else. So I don't know, he was just okay, but everyone else is enjoyable enough. The effects are really good. There is a lot of CG gore, and by that I mean during the gunfights there's not a lot of practical bursts of blood and stuff like that. Sometimes there are, but a lot of the times it's just CG blood spurts that they're putting in, and you know, making melds a little bit better than I could, but it's still really obvious that it's just a lot of CG blood spurts all over the place. But the actual practical stuff that you get when it looks like they've bolted his hands to the gun, that looks good. The other stuff that they did along the way that was practical, that looked good. So overall, the practical stuff did sell it. You know, it was definitely better than the CG, but with the amount of gunfights there were and the amount of people getting shot, they did a lot of CG blood spurts. And look, in the 80s and 90s, we didn't really need CG blood spurts. We got the ideas. So now that everyone's just adding them because they can, I don't know, it's a bit over the top for me. So that's the problem with this movie. It's aiming to be over the top, but then it pushes it too far, in my opinion, at times. But it is still an interesting enough one and done, about 90 minutes. So it's not a terribly long commitment. So yeah, I would say give it a try if you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for it. It's worth like a $6 or $7 rental, especially if you can watch it with more than just one person. But I'll probably wait to buy it until it's on a Black Friday sale or something like that. So that's going to do it for my review of Guns Akimbo. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this one if you've seen it. If you're interested enough to see it, I'd be curious to know what your all's opinions are. If you like the video, click the like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell if you don't want to miss other reviews going forward. But until next time, I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.